Thud, thud, thud. Our front door shook so hard the glass buzzed. A voice barked through the wood. "Open up, Mr. Walker. Your wife is under arrest." Not a TV show. My porch. Dawn light, breath fogging the window, coffee steaming in my hand. I'm Daniel, still in a robe and socks, trying to process why 4 men in navy shirts and boots are stacked on my steps like a raid team. Sunglasses before sunrise. HOA inspector blasted across their backs in big white stencil letters. The tallest rests a palm on a holstered sidearm, and even if it's a prop, the message is clear. Be scared. Sarah appears beside me, ponytail tight, eyes sharper than the morning air. I slide the chain, crack the door an inch. Across the gap stands Greg Morrison, our neighbor, our safety chair, and the last person I expected to see playing dress-up. "Step out, sir," he orders, voice pitched low like he's practiced it in a mirror. "We've got a security breach and a code violation. Your wife is coming with us." Tell me, viewers, if that was your door at 6:12 a.m., what would you do first? Greg leans into the frame like he owns our hinges. "Neighborhood safety," he says, trying to push past the chain. His 3 backup dancers hang back. Big boots, cheap tactical pants, ball caps, matching shirts with that shiny polyester sheen you only see on novelty uniforms. The sidearms sit in new holsters. The patches don't match any agency I've ever seen. Sarah doesn't flinch. "Do you have a warrant?" she asks, each word slow enough to land. Greg blinks. "We don't need paperwork to keep people safe." "That's a no," she replies. "Then you're not coming inside." I dial the sheriff with a thumb that stops shaking as soon as dispatch answers. From down the street, a camera shutter, then a second. Neighbors are awake. Let me be clear, for anyone living under an HOA, they can write letters, levy fines, and hold hearings. They cannot arrest you, detain you, or search your home. Full stop. If someone in a polo shirt says otherwise, ask for names, employer, and written authority. Viewers, drop your state in the comments. What would your sheriff say here? 2 years earlier, quiet was the plan. We traded San Diego sirens for a craftsman at the end of a cul-de-sac in Oakwood Heights. Maples, porch swings, kids learning to ride, the kind of silence you can hear. I'm a civil engineer. Long hours, straight lines. Sarah's work got labeled private security consulting because that's the phrase that ends nosy questions. Enter Greg Morrison. Tall, tidy, always a fresh fade in wraparound shades, a black and white cruiser often parked out front. He introduced himself as both a cop and the HOA's neighborhood safety chair, and for a while that felt like a feature, not a bug. He helped me fix a leaking garage pipe, complimented Sarah's landscaping, threw a block barbecue where he called us the model couple. He waved in uniform, he waved out of uniform, and his presence seemed to calm the street like a porch light. Back then, if you'd told me he'd show up one morning in a costume squad to arrest my wife, I'd have laughed and asked what you were drinking. Turns out, power is a costume too. People will wear whatever gets them the most attention. Have you ever had a neighbor who changes when they think they outrank you? The first crack hid in something boring, a fence. Our old wood slats were splintering. We wanted a sturdier, taller barrier so Sarah could train and take calls without feeling watched. We did it by the book, surveyed the line, pulled the permits, checked the municipal code. 6 feet was easy. The city capped at 8. The crew arrived with posts and concrete, and instantly the temperature on the block dropped. Greg stood on his lawn, arms crossed, watching like a foreman who hadn't been hired. That evening, he knocked wearing a dark polo with a badge-shaped logo that wasn't a badge. "Would you consider lowering it to 4 feet?" he asked. "It blocks my street view, and as an HOA representative, I need to think of community harmony." I said we valued privacy and we were within the law. His smile didn't reach his eyes. That was the moment the gears started turning, when preference turned into pressure. Quick poll for the comments. Privacy fence or community view? Which side are you on? From there, the paper snowball started rolling downhill. A friendly reminder about trash can placement hours sat behind the line like everyone else's. Then, a notice about excessive gym noise from our backyard, timestamped noon. An email claiming our porch lanterns were non-compliant lighting fixtures under a guideline nobody had seen before. Each time, Sarah asked for the rule, the section, the vote, the date. Each time, the answer got fuzzier. So we built a file. Permits, photos with timestamps, PDFs of city code with yellow highlights, recordings of porch conversations, email threads downloaded as receipts. Sarah color-coded the binder. I added tabs like a project manager on a deadline. Greg leaned harder into titles. He said enforcement a lot. He referenced security posture like our cul-de-sac was a base, and neighbors started repeating the phrases. That's how this stuff spreads. Short, confident words said often by someone who enjoys being watched. If you've dealt with that vibe, tell me how you pushed back without starting a war. Back to the morning raid. Greg returns with 3 large men in matching shirts, mirrored lenses, baseball caps, movie extras cast as authority. We have reports of a security breach, he says, scanning our porch like it's a crime scene. Breach of what, the bird feeder? He nods toward the holster again, as if eye contact with a firearm is persuasive. Sarah steps forward, voice low, steady. Gentlemen, identify yourselves. Full names, employer, badge numbers. Silence. One mumbles a first name and looks at his shoes. Another pretends to check a phone. Sarah doesn't raise her voice. She raises the standard. No lawful authority, no entry, no detention. I stay on with dispatch, reporting details. 4 males, navy shirts, reading HOA inspector, no marked vehicles, visible sidearms. Homeowner denies entry, request a unit. From the sidewalk, a neighbor whispers, "Are those even real?" And the camera shutter clicks again. If you're watching this, remember, the calmest person at the door usually wins. Here's where it tilts. Greg starts stacking big words like sandbags, detainment, breach, code enforcement, operational risk. Sarah answers with plain English. You don't detain homeowners. You don't investigate like police. You can schedule a hearing. That's it. She keeps her hands visible, elbows loose, stance square calm is contagious. Dispatch runs through simple questions. Any threats? Any badges? Plate numbers? Body cam? I answer what I can. You can almost hear the air leave Greg's plan. He shifts his weight. He glances at the street, sees curtains moving, lenses flashing. He hovers his hand near the holster again and thinks better of it. One of his men whispers, "Greg, maybe we should," and doesn't finish the sentence. If you've ever watched a bluff fold in real time, you know the look. Jaw clenched, eyes narrowing into a tunnel that leads nowhere. Type calm is greater than loud in chat, if you know exactly what I mean. A blue and gold cruiser rolls into the cul-de-sac with the kind of quiet that makes big engines serious. 2 deputies step out, steady and slow. They separate people and ask for ID. They write names in a little notebook that feels like a mirror. Real authority is boring, methodical, patient. No speeches, no chest puffing. Verify, document, de-escalate. They ask Greg's group for credentials, agencies, policy numbers, who authorized any detention. What they get are explanations and hedges. One deputy reminds everyone on camera that homeowners don't have to open doors to non-law enforcement and that private associations cannot arrest or search. They take statements from neighbors who heard the shouting and saw the shirts. They log the novelty uniform vendor from a photo someone pulled up. No handcuffs, no hero music, just an incident number and a request to email any footage. If you expected fireworks, sorry. This is how real life protects you, with paperwork and daylight. Not legal advice, just what happened on our porch that morning. Fallout isn't fireworks, it's agendas and minutes. The HOA board calls a special meeting and the room fills like it never has. We bring the binder. Receipts go on the projector. Fence permit, time-stamped photos, the email about non-compliant lanterns, and the screenshot of those HOA inspector shirts from a novelty site, logos blurred but obvious. Murmurs swell. Board members shift in their chairs. Greg talks about proactive safety and soft uniforms. The HOA attorney clears his throat so many times he could start a song. Policy gets read aloud. Enforcement is notice, cure, period, fine, hearing. No arrests, no searches, no fake badges. The board distances itself from unsanctioned actions and promises a review, which is HOA for someone's about to lose a title. Neighbors come up after to say thank you or to confess they were scared to speak. Here's the lesson we close with. Bullies don't need everyone to agree. They just need you to be quiet. Show up, ask for the rule, and bring light. If you live under an HOA, here's a simple checklist neighbor to neighbor. 1. Never confuse a polo with a badge. Ask for names, roles, and written authority before you open anything. 2. Keep everything permits, emails, photos, meeting notices. Receipts beat rumors every single time. 3. Speak in calm sentences and record public interactions where it's lawful. Calm wins on camera. 4. The second you hear detain, arrest, or search, call your sheriff or local police and stick to the facts. 5. Show up to meetings. Empty chairs elect the worst people. If this story helped, tell me in the comments how your HOA handles enforcement and what your state requires. Your note could help someone sleep tonight. And if you're the Greg on your block, here's your gentle nudge. Real safety is transparent, accountable, and boring. Try that uniform on. Subscribe for the follow-up. We'll post what the board decides and how we secured our home without giving an inch. Stay safe, stay documented, and don't open for cosplay. At 2:03 a.m., our house went dark like someone pinched the neighborhood's power line. Then 3 thunder knocks rattled the door. Outside, 4 men stood in navy polos, stamped HOA Inspector, 2 with hip holsters, 1 gripping a maglite like a club. Their leader, Greg, our self-anointed security chair, announced an emergency inspection. My chest hammered. Sarah didn't flinch. She straightened, flipped the deadbolt, and stopped in the doorway with a voice that cut the night. If you're here without a signed order, you're trespassing. Step over this threshold and you leave in a real cruiser. The porch fell silent. If you were in my shoes, power out, strangers armed, fake uniforms, what would you do? Call 911? Film? Hide? Drop your answer right now, because the next 5 minutes decided whether our home stayed safe or turned into a headline. Rewind a week. The first red flag wasn't boots or badges, it was paper, heavy stock, embossed letterhead, a law firm's name at the top, and a threat. Our fence violated aesthetic standards, fines of $500 a day coming in 30 days. It looked official enough to ruin breakfast. Sarah skimmed it once. No, she said. We pulled permits, city's on record. I called the number at the bottom. The receptionist sounded confused, polite, but alarmed. They had no file for our address and had never sent that notice. Using their name without permission? That's a crime. She asked me to email a copy for their records. Suddenly, this wasn't a cranky neighbor nitpicking a fence. Someone was forging authority to squeeze us. That's when I started a folder labeled Evidence. The social weather turned cold fast. People who used to wave now stared at their shoes. Conversations clipped themselves off as we walked by. Then the notes. Tucked under wipers. Taped to the mailbox. Slipped into the door jamb. Work with the community. Maybe lower the fence and we can all get along. Same message, different pens. We didn't rage. We documented. Photos with timestamps. Ziploc bags, a shared cloud folder. Meanwhile, I started noticing Sarah's habits I'd always ignored, choosing the seat with a clear view of exits, scanning a room in 3 seconds and memorizing it, speaking in precise, simple phrases when things felt off. Not military jargon, just calibrated. If you've ever felt a whole street quietly turn its back on you, tell me, what detail told you the switch had flipped? Greg didn't just push gossip, he staged a sidewalk emergency HOA meeting. 20 people circled his folding chair and his new prop, a printed sign that screamed Neighborhood Security Chairman. He pointed at our half-finished fence like it was a barricade for bad actors. Then he dropped it. I ran a background check. Sarah works at a classified facility. Her job is confidential. Gasps, murmurs, eyes on our window. Here's the thing. Greg never expected. Sarah doesn't scare on rumors, and she doesn't perform. She watched, quiet, measuring. Inside, I rolled our doorbell camera and a phone clip, wide shot on the crowd, tight shot on his sign, clean audio. On YouTube, drama sells. In real life, evidence wins. Greg wanted a stage. We gave him a record. That night, we read the HOA bylaws and the actual city code, front to back. Inspections, when legitimate, require prior written notice, daytime scheduling, and consent or a court order. A neighbor with a bad-shaped patch isn't authority. We logged a non-emergency call with the sheriff to report a forged letter and escalating harassment. We notified the power company about people loitering near the street-side breaker box. Sarah mapped our entry points, swapped batteries in every camera, and set a routine. Porch light on, interior light low, devices charged, files auto-uploaded. My job was simple but critical. If anything happened, I'd call the duty sergeant and read exact language. Armed individuals impersonating inspectors. Drop a like if you've ever prepped like this for a problem you didn't ask for. Then came the blackout. Through the blinds, I caught silhouettes at the side yard and heard metal clinking. Someone had tampered with the neighborhood panel by the curb. Boots on gravel, a gate latch clicking. 4 figures marched to our porch with clipboards and caps like a cheap costume shop bundle. Greg pounded 3 times and barked, "HOA inspection, open up." Sarah walked to the door like to a meeting she'd already won. She cracked it to the chain. "Paperwork," she said. He blinked. She repeated, slower. "Signed order, warrant, HOA authorization with a board signature. Anything real." The flashlight guy shifted. One of the others mumbled, "Greg?" He snapped back, quiet. He touched his holster like it was punctuation, not a threat, but the gesture said enough. That's when I hit speaker and called the sheriff. Greg puffed up. "This is my jurisdiction," he said. "I keep this neighborhood safe." Sarah tilted her head as if at a harmless lie. "Your shirt doesn't grant jurisdiction," she replied. "Here's what you do have: trespass, menacing, impersonation, and power tampering on a residential block." I read the bylaw section aloud, so the microphones on our cameras picked it up. Porch lights flicked on across the street. A couple of curtains shifted. We had an audience. So did he. Sarah pointed at the step. "Cross this line and you escalate a misdemeanor into an arrest." The night held its breath. If you were watching this live, would you be yelling, "Shut the door," or "Let them talk themselves into cuffs"? Say it out loud because Greg heard his own courage wobble. The crack came from his own team. The Maglite guy leaned toward him and whispered, "Not quiet enough. We don't have anything to show." Greg's jaw went hard. His eyes flashed to a small silver pin on Sarah's collar he'd missed until now. He couldn't place it, but he felt what it meant. She was not winging this. I gave the duty sergeant our address, the phrase we'd prepared, and the details. 4 males, matching shirts, 2 armed, no warrant, power interference. "Units en route," the voice said. Sarah didn't smile. She didn't need to. "You've got about 30 seconds to choose the easy path," she told Greg. "Walk away while you still can." The air stretched tight as wire. Then, finally, he stepped back. They retreated down the path, posture smaller than when they arrived. The power surged on. Our cameras chimed back to life. The network stitched the clips into the cloud. Inside, we did not cheer. We started the next phase. We emailed the forged letter PDF to the law firm's security contact, attached our call log, and added the sidewalk meeting video to the report. We flagged the power company's tampering hotline with timestamps and the cross-street panel number. We exported stills of the shirts, the fonts, the caps. We didn't chase them. We boxed them in, piece by piece. Justice isn't a street show, it's a paper trail, and the paper trail was getting heavier with every careful click. Here's the part storytellers love to skip. waiting. The sheriff called back to confirm the report and asked for copies of our footage. We delivered everything before he hung up. Then we did something you should always do after a scare. We debriefed. What worked? Cameras, preparation, calm words, exact language. What nearly failed? Assuming neighbors wouldn't look away. What changed next? The board would have to answer why their security chair tried a 2 a.m. inspection, why he used a forged letter, and why 2 of his friends showed up armed on a dark porch. I don't need to win a comment section. I need the facts to walk into the right inboxes. So, who is Sarah? Not a superhero, not a secret agent with gadgets. She's a professional who respects rules because rules keep people safe. She notices exits. She labels evidence. She lets loud men talk until they run out of ground. She doesn't play hero, she practices protocol. And when someone tries to turn a homeowners association into a costume for power, she answers with documents and daylight. If you came here for revenge, here's the real thing. Accountability, delivered step by step, recorded, time-stamped, and impossible to spin. If you want the kick the door version, you'll hate us. If you want the they never try this again version, keep watching. Next episode, we'll walk the aftermath, the board meeting, the power company's findings, and what the sheriff did with 4 matching shirts and a forged letterhead. We'll show you how to secure your own place without turning into a headline. Simple steps, low cost, high impact. We'll also answer the biggest question flooding our DMs: how to respond when a neighbor weaponizes community. Until then, tell me below what's your HOA horror story, and which piece of this plan would have helped you the most. Like, sub, and save this for the day: a fake badge decides your porch is his stage. The house went quiet again, but not the old, comfortable quiet, the heavy kind that makes you feel like the walls are listening. Sarah stood at the front window a moment longer, eyes fixed on the street, while a flashlight's glow bled between the houses and finally disappeared. Greg and his crew were gone, but the echo of fake uniforms and real guns stayed behind like a pressure in the room. We didn't argue on the porch or chase anyone down. We closed the door, listened to the silence settle, and carried it into the kitchen. My mind kept replaying the last 10 minutes like a loop I couldn't shut off. Faces, tones, the way confidence hardens when it thinks it can't be challenged. I still saw the reflection on the glass and could list the notes, the fake uniforms, the guns, Greg's self-satisfied grin. The kettle hissed like a slow fuse. Sarah set 2 mugs on the counter and met my eyes without flinching. "You've had questions about me," she said. I asked what that had to do with Greg showing up in the middle of the night. Everything. Then she gave me the truth that reset the room. My name is Sarah Walker. I'm the elected sheriff of this county. 15 years in law enforcement, 10 in the sheriff's office. Elected last year. No drama, no chest beating, just facts placed on the table. From her jacket, she set down a small digital recorder. It was running the whole time. "Impersonating law enforcement is a felony," she said. "Armed trespass isn't a prank." She could have acted then. She didn't. People like Greg escalate, and when they do, they make mistakes you can use. I tried to catch up. I had believed she was in private security, careful and discreet. She let people think that, she said, because the title she actually carried attracts enemies with resources and grudges, the kind whose reach doesn't end at a property line. Normal life is a fragile thing, and anonymity can protect the people you care about. She stood there, steam curling around her face, and spoke like she was briefing a case. Greg wasn't a nosy neighbor with a plastic badge. He was a dangerous man impersonating authority. The recorder had captured his words, and he had stepped onto our property with a story he couldn't prove. "Tomorrow," she said, "I start digging." She didn't blink. Greg Morrison is about to wish he'd never heard my name. For the first time that night, fear gave ground to focus. By morning, the kitchen was a field office. Her laptop glowed on the dining table, a notepad bristled with arrows, her coffee cooled untouched. She started with the basics: county personnel records, state rosters, Licensing databases. Nothing. No sworn officer named Greg Morrison here, and nothing under that name statewide. He wasn't even a registered security guard. Next, she went to property records. The deed for Greg's house didn't list Morrison at all. It listed Gregory Mitchell. When she fed that name into her system, the results came fast. 3 prior arrests, including 2 in Arizona for impersonating a police officer, and 1 in Nevada for harassment. Fired from at least 3 private security companies for abuse of authority. Civil suits in both states for intimidation, false incident reports, and stalking. A paper trail with shape, not rumor. She pushed past the alias and followed filings. Corporate records showed 2 shell companies out of Nevada, each pointing to the same mailing address as a man named Victor Hale. Sarah summarized what she knew from prior briefings. Hale, a real estate investor, had once been under investigation for property scams involving military families. That was the signal, not the noise. Greg wasn't agitating about a fence. He was chasing control, and control turns into money when you twist a neighborhood. The pattern she read out loud was simple and ugly. Move from state to state. Start friendly. Build trust. Claim authority you don't have. And lean on people until they stop pushing back. Sometimes, she said, men like him even take over an HOA entirely. I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't petty, it was a play. So what now? I asked. Now we gather evidence. She laid 3 compact cameras on the table, the kind that vanish into corners, motion activated, night vision, audio capable. By mid-afternoon, the first was tucked into the branches of the maple tree out front, lens angled toward the street. The second hid beneath the eaves above the garage, covering the drive. The third sat inside near the front door, ready to capture anyone who tried to posture on our threshold. Sarah checked angles twice, tested motion, verified audio, and set up the folders she'd need. She didn't build speeches, she built a record. That evening, she gave me the rule of the house. We let him think he's winning. We don't react to the little stunts. When he overreaches, and he will, we'll have him on tape. The net needed bait that didn't look like bait. In the HOA's private group chat, the one Greg had promoted as a hub for security updates, Sarah posted a careful message. Our home had been asked to temporarily store equipment for a county training exercise, and a delivery truck might come late at night. She didn't name units or times. She didn't sell drama. She just left a plausible note that would itch at someone hungry for proof of his own importance. By afternoon, the maple camera pinged. Greg pacing on the sidewalk, phone to his ear, eyes locked on our house. That night, Sarah used her credentials to draft a mock training inventory list. Nothing sensitive, just enough jargon to read as official, and left it open on her laptop, screen angled so it could be seen through the front window. Before sunrise, the camera in the maple tree caught him on our lawn, leaning close to the glass and snapping photos of that screen. Sarah downloaded the footage, labeled it with time and placement, and filed it without a smile. Step 1, complete, she said. That evening, she called a trusted contact on a secure channel, Rodriguez, a retired FBI agent she had worked with on joint operations. His update tied threads to names. Your guy's definitely still active, he said. Name's Victor Hale, been moving property through straw buyers for years. Sarah asked, You have enough to charge? Rodriguez didn't hesitate. Not yet. But if we can prove he's operating under false authority and using intimidation to force sales, we can bring federal charges. You get me the bridge between his fake cop act and Hale's shell companies, and we're in business. Sarah took notes as he spoke. Each word another line in a net we could almost see. Over the next 2 days, Sarah built the next step of the trap. She drafted a memo addressed to Sheriff Sarah Walker from a fictitious county tactical training division, a deliberately vague note about a high-value asset relocation. Nothing sensitive, just enough jargon to sound real at a glance. Then she printed a copy and left it in our unlocked mailbox. By nightfall, it was gone. The following morning, the garage camera caught Greg meeting a man in a silver SUV at the curb. They stood by the driver's door, passed the memo between them and pointed toward our house, two silhouettes framed by early light. Sarah watched the footage twice, then froze the frame and zoomed the license plate. "That's Hale's car," she said. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The bridge we were looking for had just put itself in the frame, patient and legible. To keep the pressure steady, Sarah posted one more line in the HOA chat, a reminder to keep driveways clear because of the upcoming training equipment delivery, with the arrival time classified. But within the next 72 hours, less than half an hour later, another camera recorded Greg in his own driveway, pacing with his phone. "You sure it's worth something?" he said into the receiver. A pause. "All right, I'll take care of it. We'll get them out before the delivery date." No shouting. No threats we could hear. Just a promise floating in the evening air. Sarah muted the clip, saved the file, and gave me the same look she had given after the recorder clicked off on night one, the calm acknowledgement that a line had moved. And once a line moves, it keeps moving, because that is how a scheme exposes itself, one line at a time. At dinner, I said the quiet part. "What happens if this blows back on us? What if they realize you're baiting them?" Sarah set her fork down, met my eyes, and let a small, cold smile replace every answer. Then we moved to step 3. I waited. "Public exposure," she said. "The kind you don't come back from." She didn't explain the choreography. She didn't need to. I didn't ask for details. Part of me didn't want to know until it happened, but I could feel it, the tide turning. Greg thought he was building a case against us. He had no idea that every move he made was handing Sarah the rope he'd eventually hang himself with. The plan stayed simple. Keep collecting, keep calm, and let him escalate into daylight. When the time came, there would be no shouting, no scene, just the quiet impact of proof laid in a straight line. We didn't celebrate, we prepared. Sarah tightened the files, checked the cameras again, and set fresh pages on the notepad. Tomorrow, she said, she would keep digging. Greg Mitchell when it suited him, Morrison when it didn't, would keep performing. That was the point. People like him can't resist attention or opportunity. Give them just enough of both, and they show you exactly who they are. For the first time all night, something other than fear arrived in the room. It wasn't relief yet, but it was close, a steadier breath, a feeling that the pressure had finally met its match. We had video watching the street from the maple tree, video watching the driveway from the eaves, and video watching the threshold from inside. We had a recorder full of his words, and labeled clips ready to call up. He had picked the wrong house to intimidate, and it wouldn't be long before he learned that the hard way. He pulled a gun at a neighborhood meeting. 30 phones shot up. One bang cracked the afternoon, and for a heartbeat, everyone thought someone was dead. Freeze that frame. Before the echo faded, Sarah had already moved one step, one twist, one firm redirect, and the man who ran our HOA ate grass with his face and his ego. That was the second the mask came off. If you think an HOA is just paint colors and lawn height, buckle up. Today you'll see how a fake cop tried to bully a community, how one quiet woman broke his playbook in public, and how a scheme built on fear collapsed in 3 seconds flat. As you watch, ask yourself, if this happened on your block, would you film, would you speak, or would you freeze? I won't show tactics, and I won't glamorize violence. What you'll get is the simple truth of what happened, why it worked, and how ordinary people kept each other safe when a bully finally overplayed his hand. Ready? Rewind 10 hours, before the gun, before the shouting, before the neighborhood learned what power really looks like when it is quiet and lawful. Greg had been strutting for days, staging driveway whispers like he was running a spy ring, dropping words like compliance and violations as if he owned the rulebook. He wore a crisp navy polo and a bright badge that impressed anyone who never asked a basic question, "What's your number?" Friday morning, Sarah watched him from our window and laid out the pattern like a blueprint. "He's going to call a public meeting," she said over coffee. "He needs a stage, a crowd, and fear." That afternoon, right on cue, a flyer landed in our mailbox. Emergency OA gathering Saturday. 4 p.m. Community Dispute Resolution. At the bottom, bold letters. Attendance strongly encouraged. You know that tone. Not a request, a dare. I called it bait. Sarah called it an opportunity. He thinks this is where I get humiliated, she said. Instead, we'll let the facts do their job. Saturday came hot and bright. By 3:50 p.m., folding chairs formed a half circle on the grass strip in front of our house. The heat stitched the afternoon together. The asphalt shimmered like water. Nearly 30 neighbors showed up, more than I had seen at any HOA event. Greg arrived like a self-crowned sheriff, fake badge clipped high, aviators hiding his eyes, 2 inspectors at his flanks holding clipboards like warrants. He pitched his voice to Carrie. This isn't personal, he announced, pointing at our iron fence like it was a crime scene. 6 feet tall, blocks sightlines, unsafe for children. A few nods rippled, the kind you get when people want peace more than truth. Then he stepped closer, lowering his tone as if sharing classified intel. And my investigation shows Mrs. Sarah Walker is involved in activities that raise national security concerns. Gasps. A hush. That was the smear he wanted captured on every phone. Sarah stepped forward in a black blazer and a calm you could feel. No badge on display, no gun, just poise. Greg, she said, cutting in before the rumors could root. Before you go further, show us your police identification number. He laughed the way bullies laugh when they expect the room to join. That's sensitive information, he said. Some heads tilted, some eyes dropped. Sarah didn't budge. Every sworn officer here has a badge number. It's public record. She turned to a small folding table, tapped her laptop, and a portable projector lit the screen behind her. Click. The county roster of active law enforcement appeared. She scrolled to the M's. There is no Greg Morrison, she said, steady as a metronome. Click again. A receipt from a costume supplier, shipped 8 months ago to his address for a replica police badge. The room didn't erupt. It inhaled. Then it started to think. Murmurs became questions. The inspectors looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. Greg's jaw pulsed as he reached for control he had already lost. Fabricated, he barked. Sarah didn't raise her voice. Is this fabricated too? Click. A still from our garage cam. 5:37 a.m. Greg leaning near our window, phone out, snapping photos of a staged training list. Click. A short audio clip from 2 nights earlier. Greg's voice, caught by a yard mic, saying, "We'll get them out before the delivery date. No lectures, no jargon, just simple proof." Quick check-in, viewer. If you were sitting in that circle, what would you do next? Ask a question, start recording, or get up and walk away? Tell me in the comments, because your answer says a lot about how neighborhoods stay safe. And if you've ever been pressured by a board or a boss who counts on silence, note this. Facts travel farther than volume when the crowd can see them with their own eyes. His answer to proof was a gun. The motion was sharp, but not sharp enough to fool trained eyes. He yanked the pistol free and leveled it at Sarah. Chairs scraped across pavement. Someone screamed, "Everyone shut up!" He roared, voice shaking with rage more than fear. Sarah didn't step back. She kept her hands visible and her tone flat, like a verdict. "Greg, you just made the worst mistake of your life," she said. "You are pointing a loaded firearm at a law officer in front of 30 witnesses, and you are on camera." He glanced at the jungle of phones and flinched. "They don't know what's real." "They know enough," Sarah replied, "and you're out of time." The air felt tight, like the whole block was holding one breath, waiting for the next beat to decide what kind of place this was. A child sobbed somewhere behind the last row of chairs, and that small sound broke whatever spell he thought he had cast. I won't break down moves. This isn't a tutorial. What matters is the outcome. One controlled step, a redirect that sent the muzzle skyward, a single deafening crack into open air, and then zip ties. The fake sheriff was face down, wrists secured, the weapon cleared. Silence landed first. Then the syncopated sound of people breathing again. Then a single clap that spread like a small wave and stopped, as if the crowd remembered this wasn't over. Greg spat curses into the grass, but the fight had already ended. Sarah didn't look at him. She scanned the edges, reading exits and angles the way other people read headlines. 2 inspectors were gone. "Daniel, call the sheriff," she said without looking up. 1 in custody, 2 at large, likely armed. My fingers shook as I dialed. Sirens began as a rumor and grew into a certainty. Patrol cars turned onto our street and rolled to a stop with a confidence that calmed the ground. Deputies stepped out with steady hands, made the scene safe, and listened. Detective Maria Santos, compact and sharp-eyed, took the pistol, checked the serial, and met Sarah's gaze with the kind of nod that says, "We've both seen worse." "He's been on our radar," she told us. "You just handed us what we needed." Greg tried one last line as they walked him to the car, twisting his head toward Sarah. "You were targeted long before you moved here," he hissed. "When they send someone else, it won't be me." The door shut on the rest of the threat, but the words stayed like heat in the air. Neighbors looked at each other with the same question in their eyes. Who is they? Sarah didn't answer. Not yet. She gave the weapon over, made a clear statement, and stepped back, letting the professionals take the weight. It felt like the first time all day that gravity was normal. The next 48 hours played like a search montage. Warrants at Greg's house, and 2 nearby properties tied to shell companies run by a man named Hale. Boxes and hard drives flowed out the doors, one after another. A duffel bag stuffed with badges, patches, and laminated IDs, the props of fake authority sat on a porch like a guilty centerpiece. On a seized tablet, notes on families, daily habits, income ranges, school routes, not random harassment, targeting. The 2 inspectors who'd slipped away were picked up in the next county. Faced with evidence, they flipped fast, tracing money and orders upstream. By midweek, agents were reading warrants in new zip codes while reporters practiced the phrase HOA sting on live shots at the end of our block. It was messy, careful work, the kind audiences rarely see, led by people who spoke in facts, not fury. And every fact made the old story Greg told about standards and safety fall apart. Here's the scheme in plain words. Greg picked targets, often military or law enforcement families, because they follow rules, keep heads down, and own homes near places that matter. He posed as authority, wrote fake fines, threatened vague violations, and piled on stress until moving felt easier than fighting. Hale's companies bought the houses under pressure, flipped them for profit, and moved to the next neighborhood. Repeat across states, and the map shifts by inches no one notices. Yes, it was about money. But it was also about influence, who gets pushed close to bases, labs, or key routes, and who gets pushed away. Sarah spread property records and simple flowcharts across our dining table so neighbors could understand it without legal language. When people see the path, they stop blaming themselves for the maze. I want to pause and talk directly to you. Have you ever felt that churn when a board, a boss, or a neighbor uses fear instead of facts? If yes, drop a yes in the comments, and if you can, 1 sentence about what helped. Your note might be the reason someone else doesn't fold. Also, don't underestimate simple tools. A doorbell cam, a paper trail, a public roster. The still from our garage turned gossip into evidence. The audio clip turned a hunch into intent. The roster search turned a costume into a lie. If you're in a fight like this, document everything, stay calm, ask basic questions, and bring problems into the light where lies don't last long. And if this story gives you courage, share it with 1 neighbor who's being pushed around right now. That's how communities get strong, not by shouting, but by standing together. By week's end, the task force had grown. Captain Rodriguez, broad-shouldered, silver at the temples, shook Sarah's hand like they had met in other fires. Agents mapped the network, seized accounts, and started the slow work that comes after the headline. Our street went from quiet to crowded, and back to quiet again. Neighbors who'd avoided us for weeks walked over with relief and a dozen questions. Sarah didn't spike the ball. The operation is done, she said, but the investigation will take months. She meant the paperwork, the hearings, all the steps that turn a moment into justice. But later, when the porch lights were off, she admitted one thing still kept her up. Greg's last words about being targeted before we even moved in. That wasn't paranoia. It was a puzzle. And puzzles have answers if you keep asking the right questions. So here's where we leave it for now. A fake cop lost his stage. A bigger ring lost its cover. A neighborhood found its voice. If you take one thing from this, take a checklist you can use tomorrow. Ask for the badge number, verify the roster, keep records, bring a witness, and never confuse volume with authority. If this helped you, tap subscribe and share. Part 2 is coming. Who marked our family before we unpacked a single box, and why did they care where we lived? We'll follow the paper, not the rumors, and we'll keep the story human, not hateful. Because justice isn't about making a scene, it's about making the truth easy to see and giving regular people the nerve to stand their ground without becoming what they're fighting. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, the strongest person in the room is rarely the loudest. It's the one who can prove it. The white van slowed in front of our house, and the driver stared a beat too long. The street was quiet. My pulse wasn't. Sarah, my wife, didn't wave or smile. She just stepped back inside and locked the door with a calm click that said, "I saw you." 6 weeks earlier, our neighborhood had dragged an HOA bully out by the rules and into handcuffs. Peace was supposed to follow. Instead, a new question idled at the curb. If that happened on your block, would you shrug it off or hit record and note the plates? Tell me in the comments, because what we did next wasn't luck. It was policy, practice, and something Sarah kept repeating. Don't be paranoid, but don't be passive. You're about to see how an ordinary street learned to fight back without throwing a punch, and how one quiet woman rewrote the playbook for every fake badge in a 5-mile radius. 6 weeks after Greg Mitchell's arrest, Oakwood Heights learned to breathe again. We waved at mailboxes, kids traded scooters, and the HOA finally met in a real room instead of shouting on lawns. But we didn't just move on, we rebuilt. The board set rotating leadership, opened the books for everyone to see, and wrote a new, simple rule in bold. Nobody gets any role with security in the title without a real law enforcement background and verifiable credentials. That rule wasn't spite, it was a seatbelt. Minutes got posted, budgets went public, and decisions required daylight. If your HOA is a mess, remember this: process is power. We didn't need louder voices, we needed clearer rules. And yes, there's a place for kindness at a potluck, but there's also a place for receipts, signatures, and a timer on the microphone. Order gave us our street back. Sarah refused a leadership title twice. Real leadership is empowering people, not holding power over them, she told the first meeting, and the room stood up like someone opened a window. Instead, she built a monthly safety class that outgrew the community center by month 3. She didn't teach fear, she taught tools. Her 3-step fake badge check. 1. Verify the agency. Call the public number, not the one on their card. 2. Check the ID format. Hologram. Expiration. Badge number. Control the scene. Stay in public view. Start a recording and bring a neighbor. For kids, she drilled the call for help script. Yell loud. Name the threat. Describe it. For adults, she added a documentation kit. Time, location, plate, direction of travel. Pause this video and practice it out loud. That habit saved us more than once. Unity Day sealed the truce. We grilled, we laughed, and the kids treated Sarah like a superhero in jeans and a ball cap. A bronze plaque appeared on the new slide, paid for with funds recovered from Greg's property sales, honoring those who stand up for truth. But the world doesn't retire just because your block throws a barbecue. A week later, a postcard arrived. No return address, blank except for one line. You stopped one of them. There are more. Sarah didn't post it in the group chat. She filed it, then called Detective Rodriguez from the county's organized fraud unit on a secure line. That night, I found her at the kitchen table, lit by a laptop glow, scrolling a quiet spreadsheet of names and addresses. Just keeping track, she said. Not paranoia, pattern recognition. Back to the van. I was planting bulbs. Sarah watched from the doorway. The driver's gaze lingered, then the turn signal blinked, and the van disappeared. Probably nothing, she said, but I'll keep an eye on it. And that's the lesson most people miss. The goal isn't to live scared, it's to live aware. At the next HOA meeting, Sarah sat on the oversight committee, back row, eyes scanning, notebook open. We added a quick drill. If you see something off, don't rage in the chat. Document and route. Our neighbors learned the rhythm: observe, verify, report. No hero speeches, no street showdowns, just boring, repeatable steps that make bad actors hate your block. Would you adopt that in your neighborhood? Drop a yes if you will. I'll pin a checklist you can print for your fridge. Here's the part I didn't tell you at the start. Sarah Walker, the woman Greg tried to intimidate, wasn't just my wife. She was the county sheriff. She never flashed a badge to win an argument. She built a system so no one could abuse one again. That's justice that lasts, not a takedown clip, but a rulebook that outlives the villain. So when I say the van bothered me, understand why Sarah only locked the door and took a note. Peace isn't a lullaby, it's maintenance. If this story helped, share it with the person on your street who always organizes the block party. And remember our mantra: verify before you trust, document before you confront, and never give a fake badge a second of your daylight.